Welcome to the first day of the Geeky Chocolate Extravaganza. We are so excited to welcome you guys. We are going to be diving deep into all things chocolate over the next 7 days, and we decided today would be a good day to start at the very beginning. And who better to start us off on the right foot than Chef Martin Earl from ThermoWorks, who really dives deep into concepts. We love inviting him in for classes when it comes to really understanding the hows and whys and the history of all things.
Well, I'm glad I'm first then, because I'm not going to be saying things that everybody else is going to say too.
You're getting us off on the right foot.
All right. Well, today I wanted to just do like kind of a background on chocolate,
Yes.
a little bit of history, a little bit of science. I want to talk about how chocolate is made, basically.
Perfect.
And I think that can give people a better understanding of how to work with chocolate, and just like, you know, it's nice to know, have that richer background of what things are and things like that. Chocolate bars do not grow on trees, neither do chocolate chips. But it's like they do, because so chocolate obviously it comes from the cocoa bean, right?
Okay.
It comes from the cocoa tree. There's anywhere from 2 to 10 varieties of cocoa trees, depending on which scientist you're asking at any given time. There are 2 for sure, 3 definitely maybe, and up to 10.
Okay.
People aren't so sure on that yet. All cocoa is grown between the tropics,
Okay.
in the tropical areas near the equator, but it's mostly grown in the Americas there.
Okay.
So the cocoa bean it's not like a bean, it grows in a pod. It looks a lot like an alien football. And it's kind of like oblong like this, and inside of it there's all these rows of fleshy pulp, and the beans are inside of that.
Okay.
So those are harvested. The beans are taken out with the pulp on them, and those are fermented in the summer heat, in the tropical heat, 5, 6, 7 days. That has to be done very carefully. If you let it go wrong, then molds are introduced and things like that. So that's the first step in the process.
So the longer the fermenting process, does that give you a richer, darker flavor, or is it
It gives you more flavor. So you have a lot of enzymatic reactions that are happening
Okay.
at that time, and that goes from a raw kind of green. It's bitter. It's not very good.
Okay.
It's not very good. So that'll go through that process, and the enzymes will do their thing. And then you'll dry the beans, and that's done very carefully. Again, you want to avoid mold and things like that. And then the beans are roasted, and that's where the darkness comes from, where
Okay.
the richness really comes from. And it's just like coffee roasting, really. You know, you got your light roasts and your dark roasts, and how hot you roast it for how long, and how you do it is. It's a matter of it's proprietary information for every cocoa maker and things like that. So on each bean, there's kind of a papery shell,
Okay.
right? And that papery shell is not useful for anything in the kitchen. So you have to take that off of every single bean. And when you crush the beans, they shatter into these cacao nibs, right? So you have kind of a bean that's about this big, and it shatters into this. Now you have basically all the components, everything you need for chocolate flavor is in here.
Okay.
These are, though, try some? They're obviously bitter. They're very dark.
Yes.
They have kind of an acidic flavor to them. They're not very interesting.
No.
There's a lot of different ways you can go. So, now, cocoa is from Central and South America, right? That's where it's originally from. In South and Central America, especially among the Aztecs, it was always a drink. They would grind it they would roast it in clay pots, they would grind it between stones, and they would mix it with cold water. They would add honey, they would add spices, chilies, pepper, things like that. And they would drink that all the time. It was great. And so when Cortez imported it, that's how it was drunk in Europe, because they just did it like they did there. And it took a long time for them to turn it into what we consider chocolate. First off, it was drunk alone for a long time. It was savory, not sweet.
Okay.
In England, it so happened that there kind of became a division that men would drink coffee and women would drink chocolate. It just sort of happened that way. That weird gender typing kind of still persists in some places. It was Nicholas Sanders who first introduced milk to the chocolate drink.
Okay.
That was in the 1720s.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until 1828 when Van Houten in the Netherlands, he basically put us on the road to making solid chocolate bars.
Okay.
Because he invented the cocoa press. So in all these nibs, there is a lot of fat bound up. And that fat is the cocoa butter. And he found a way to extract that under high pressure. He would grind it, and he would press it, and he would extract the cocoa butter, leaving cocoa powder, basically. And that cocoa powder was great. That became drinking chocolate.
Okay. There's no fat in it.
It's basically defatted, and that's still today. Like you buy Hershey's cocoa powder, any other cocoa powder, that's got basically no fat in it. It's defatted cocoa beans. Is all it is.
Okay.
That's why it has that same bitterness of the nibs and things like that.
Yeah.
If you took these and you ground them with sugar, that would not be the chocolate that we want. Because what we want is that really smooth mouthfeel. And we want something that will melt in our mouths, that has a nice crisp break to it, things like that. And for that, you need to actually add in more cocoa butter than there is naturally occurring in the bean.
Oh.
And that's how chocolate basically came to be as we know it. It was in the mid-1800s.
Okay.
So it's not that old a food.
No, it's really not.
Which is kind of
No
surprising.
wonder it was the Dark Ages, right?
Right, yeah.
There was no chocolate.
Dark Ages are basically pre-chocolate.
Yeah.
We start the modern era in 1828 with
Yeah.
Van Houten's. Somebody could write a paper on that. Anyways, so that's basically how it goes. So you grind the nibs, you add your sugar, vanilla can go into chocolate. It's great. You can add any sort of addition to it that you want that is low in water.
Okay.
Water will cause the chocolate to seize, so you want to avoid that. But basically, you're going to grind cacao nibs with sugar, with added cocoa butter. We have two kinds of cocoa butter
I was
here.
just going to say, can you tell me the differences between
So
the two?
this is basically just natural, raw cocoa butter. You can see in here.
It's really attractive looking.
It's really hard actually. Like digging this out, you can. It looks all funny because people have been digging out of this with knives and spatulas and almost impaling their hands and things like that. It's really hard. You could melt that down and pour some off from that. Right now, the melting point of this is probably about body temperature.
Okay.
Near body temperature.
Okay.
But you can also get it powdered like this. This is Mitrio. This is a powdered. This is a pre-tempered chocolate, so you can use this for seeding chocolate.
Yes.
And it's beautiful because of that. Well, when you make it yourself, you have to have something to go off of.
Yes.
So that's the cocoa butter, and you add that in there, and then you'll have to let it grind for a while. And then there are all sorts of those chemicals in here that we tasted that were like bitter and kind of acrid. Those we want to drive out.
Okay.
Right? We want those gone because they don't make it taste good. We want those bright, fruity flavors. We want the terroir of the land. There's actually a company here in Utah, Amano Chocolate, and they have one chocolate that is the beans for that chocolate bar are grown just on this one side of this one hill on this one plantation.
Okay.
Because on the other side of the hill, the beans taste different.
Wow.
And it's just the sunlight is kind of different on the two sides. So it's like a fine wine in that way.
Yeah.
You can pick up the terroir. So like getting beans from Ghana, it's going to taste different than getting beans from Colombia. It's going to taste different than getting beans from Venezuela or from Trinidad or anything like that.
What are some of the things that change those flavors?
I mean, the environment, the minerals in the soil, how much rain, how much sun, and how that rain and sun comes and things like that. There's just a million things that go into it. Every piece of dirt on the earth is going to taste different from every other piece. The history of it, how long cocoa beans have grown there, how long other things have grown there will affect the soil and therefore the terroir. And then, of course, there is that fermentation, that drying process that does change a lot also. So you might have, you could get beans from like two trees next to each other and ferment them differently and come out with wildly different cocos.
Okay.
So there's just like a million ways for chocolate to go wrong, and a million ways for chocolate to go right. Basically.
Right.
One of the things that we want to do though to get rid of those flavors, if you're attempting this from home, you're going to basically need something like this. This is the spinning contraption here is a chocolate refiner. This has a granite base in here and two granite wheels that hold still, and it's grinding the chocolate in there. So we put all the ingredients in there. We've ground them up a little bit beforehand so that it's easy for the wheels to digest. And this can grind for 8 to 12 hours. In that time, we will get our particles down. This particular machine goes as low as 20 microns,
Oh, wow.
which is great. So we can get as smooth a chocolate as an industrial
So that's
chocolate.
what's controlling the smoothness.
Yeah,
Okay. Ingredients you add first?
It's really great to go with kind of ground up cacao nibs first. These are a little bit chunky to go in there, and so it's a good idea to run those through
We
a
just
food
pulse
processor.
them in the food processor.
Yeah, and then throw those in, and you want to kind of add them a little bit at a time. Yeah, you can see the texture on those. Add them a little bit at a time, giving the thing time to kind of digest them as it goes.
Okay.
And then you add your sugar in. And then I put in the seeds of 1 vanilla bean in here.
Okay.
So you want some grapes, water, chocolate, you want to mix them together, and then some of the cocoa butter.
A drop of like cinnamon.
Do you keep the vanilla bean every time you make it, or is it something when you're
you know, if I don't have vanilla bean on hand and I want to make some chocolate, I go ahead and I make some chocolate. You can add other things as long as they are. You need to add oils, not extracts. Again, the water in an extract is going to bind up with the sugar, and that's going to cause the whole thing to seed. It's going to be really sad. So this is acting as both a refiner, getting the particle size down, and a concher.
Okay.
So conching is the process whereby you agitate the chocolate back and forth. Some do it with paddles that go back and forth. There's different ways of doing it. And conching is what drives off those volatile chemicals. This keeps re-exposing new parts of the chocolate to the air all the time. You can see. That's lovely. Look how much smoother that's got.
Yeah. And it's only been what, maybe 25, 30 minutes?
Maybe 25, 30 minutes, yeah, if that. So, a really good quality chocolate bar, artisan chocolate, can cost $7 to $12 for a bar of chocolate. And that seems ridiculous when you're used to paying 75 cents to $1.25 for a bar of Hershey's, but it is 10 times better.
Sure.
And so, it's worth 10 times the cost. But you just break a piece off, set it on your tongue, move it around your whole mouth, move it all over your tongue, and see what flavors bloom and what develop as the chocolate warms, as it melts, as it coats your tongue, and after you swallow it as it goes on. One thing that also you need to watch out if you're making this on your own is the temperature of the chocolate. And it's going to vary from recipe to recipe,
okay.
from bean to bean,
okay.
source to source. But you're going to want to find out a way to watch the temperature on this, because if it gets too hot, you start, all the volatile chemicals will have gone out, but then all the good flavors are going to start burning out also, and then they'll go away. Let's go ahead and feel that. Like there's some, there's some real warmth there, right? And we can take our thermopen pen here, and we can actually check what temperature this chocolate is at, and it's 100 degrees. There
okay.
we go. So
since you brought up temperature, tell me. And you briefly talked about how over the process the flavor will change.
Yeah, well.
Could I run this to where it gets warm enough and long enough that it takes all of the flavor out?
Basically,
Okay.
I've done that. My first couple batches when I started doing this, I ran for too long and I didn't change the temperature by venting it like that. And it ended up just tasting really flat.
Okay.
I mean, it tasted like chocolate, but it didn't taste interesting by any means. You know, like right now, this has some of those fruity flavors. It's very interesting. If I let this go on a higher heat like this, and if I let this go for hours and hours, this would eventually flatten out into just tasting like kind of like dark chocolate, just like Hershey's Special Dark or something like that. No offense, Hershey's Special Dark.
It's got a place.
It's got its place. This isn't it.
Yeah. Again, tell me what this is called.
This is called a refiner or a melanger.
Okay.
A melanger. And it's got the granite bottom. It's got the granite wheels. Actually, I can go ahead and take that out. Now,
tell me, where does one find one of these?
I got this on Amazon,
okay.
But you can buy them direct from the manufacturer. Diamond Chocolate Products, I think is what it's called. You can see this. Take a look at that. It's really fascinating. The wheels turn.
So this is what's smashed. Like
this is what's
crushing.
smashing. Yep. This is what's
and
crushing.
And these white things are just keeping.
And those basically scrape the sides.
Okay.
And keep everything in play.
And you recently made Nutella.
I recently made Nutella with this. Basically, I just took the cacao nibs and I ground those with toasted hazelnuts.
Okay.
I put in some sugar, I put in some milk powder, and I put in a little bit of oil because I found that there's enough of the cocoa butter coming out of the beans that it would re-solidify. Okay. This is a really highly specialized thing. I don't expect everybody to get this. If you decide you want to get into chocolate making, if you want to make nut butters that are like a little bit different, something like that, this is a cool tool. You can grind all sorts of things in it. But it's expensive. It's a really powerful motor. There's a lot of rock in here. So it's a really fun tool. It's one of my favorite kitchen tools that I don't use all the time.
Well, we're happy to give you a reason to. At least once a year to come make chocolate.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's basically the process of how it's done. It's the harvesting, fermenting, drying, roasting, the winnowing, which again I would avoid, and then you have grinding and refining and conching. And then, of course, you have tempering.
Okay.
And tempering is where kind of the rubber meets the road. I'm just going to leave this off for the rest of this. So
well, and this is a process that takes a long time. We're going to do, I mean, like you said, 8 to 12 hours. Really quick, jumping back to temperatures. So you said you've left it on too long. Is there certain temperatures that you're trying to hit so that people can kind of estimate?
I mean, I would try to keep it below 105.
Okay.
Certainly below 120.
Okay.
120, a lot of things really start to burn off, which you don't want.
Yeah.
You can try to fine tune where your cocoa beans taste the way you want them to.
Okay.
And that's really kind of
So
fun.
that's where the science comes in.
Yeah. So well, that's kind of where more of some of the art comes in,
Okay.
right? So like, you know, you can taste it along the way, and you're like, you know what, this has, maybe you like a little bit of an acidic edge on it. If it has just the right acidic edge, then like prevent the temperature from rising anymore.
Okay.
And you can hold it there. If you're like, it's got like, you know, if I want it to be a little bit more smooth in the flavor, you can let the temperature go up a little bit more. Your thermopen is great for that. It's going to give you fast readings that are accurate to 0.7 degrees.
This tool.
It's the way to go.
But this is a tool also along all processes of chocolate. So when you get to be doing the melting and the tempering and the dipping, this is something that you can use on all aspects.
100%. Yeah, it's good across the entire spectrum of chocolate and candy making.
Okay. Last year at the extravaganza, Martin shared with us his passion fruit caramel recipe. I believe it is still on the blog. We'll make sure that we reference to that because it is life-changing caramel, where if you are wanting to explore into candy making, it's a great way. And it wasn't even that difficult. I feel like sometimes it feels so daunting, and understanding temperatures will change your candy making.
Our great grandmothers did it by like dropping little balls of sugar
Touching
into
chocolate
water,
right
touching
here,
chocolate right
yes.
here, and things like that. And you know what? If you live in a pre-industrial, pre-technological society and you want something sweet to eat, go ahead and do those things. But you don't live in a pre-technological society. You're watching a YouTube video right now. So get a thermometer and like actually take the temperature of things. We know how this actually works now. It's not a mystery to us.
No.
You can have the kind of control that grandmother never had, honestly. You know, I mean, think about it. If you're boiling sugar on the stove and you want to take a drop of it and throw it in here and see if it turns into a crack, while that is like cracking, your sugar's still cooking.
Yes.
Like you're waiting for this to happen. You're missing the boat.
Yes.
You're gonna miss the boat. Thermometry is the way to go. And you really need it for tempering chocolate. And different chocolates are gonna have different tempering curves. That will put the right kind of seed crystals in your chocolate that you want. That will give you that snap, that sheen, that beautifulness that isn't gonna bloom out and things like that.
Because there's a lot of things that are happening when you're melting and making and trying to use chocolate, but I think, you know, understanding that like just hit those temperatures and it will do what it's supposed to do if it's hit.
That's right. Yeah. And there's no mystery in it there, right?
No.
If you keep the water out of it and you go up to here and you go down to here and you're mixing everything the right way, it's going to turn out. It's just like it's like math at that point, right? If you add this to this to this, you're going to end up with this. And if you follow those temperatures just the right way, you're going to end up in the right place.
So don't be overwhelmed.
Don't be overwhelmed.
The thermometer will be your very best friend throughout this whole process.
So, I mean, chocolate, again, it's so well beloved the world over. Everybody loves chocolate, right? If you enjoy chocolate, if you enjoy eating it, then I hope that, you know, having this understanding of where it comes from and how it's made and what goes into it helps a little bit, you know? Like people thought of it as an aphrodisiac, as a cure-all, as a food supplement. It was such an important question, actually, when chocolate began being to be drunk in Europe in the 1600s. Because it's nutritive, right? It isn't just like water, it provides something else. The Catholic Church had to figure out, does it count as a food or a drink? Because it provides nutrition like food, but you drink it, and are you breaking fast days if you drink chocolate? And they ultimately decided that like wine, we're gonna treat this like a drink even though it gives you something. And so that you wouldn't be breaking fast days by drinking chocolate.
So wine and chocolate.
Wine and chocolate,
yeah,
fast days, go for it. And that's just to say that chocolate has been of immense importance in our food culture, you know. And I hope that this has helped people understand.
I think it's very important to understand the ingredients and the elements and all the things that go into it as we get ready to show you how to use it and enjoy it and have fun with it. And most of all, make memories.
Yeah.
You are going to take this home. It does, like we said, 8 to 12 hours. As much as we would love to stay here, Martin has a life.
I have things to do.
But he's going to show us the process of like the finishing, and so stay tuned for that. But most of all, thank Thank you for bringing insight. Thank
Yeah.
you for bringing the science and the education and the things that we love so much about this. So.
Well, my pleasure always. Thanks for having me.